Hey everybody, Moshe Kurtz here. I am just getting back from the first conference of the Rabbinical Council of America that has taken place since 2019, and also my first time attending. I had an amazing time connecting with many Rabban and many colleagues and rabbinic leaders. Some of them we are going to feature in this special episode you're about to hear, such as Rav Rimon, Rabbi Dratch, Rabbi Shlomo Weissman of the Basin of America, and many others who I met as well, and we just asked them what is their favorite teshuva, and if they were to write one, what would it be about? So we're going to do one right after the other, and enjoy. Hello to my friends at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. This is Moshe Kurtz, and we are at the Rabbinical Council of America conference right now. There are many great minds here in the room, Rabbanim from across America, and also now from Eretz Yisrael. So I am joined by Rabbi Dratch, who previously headed the Rabbinical Council of America, now living in Eretz Yisrael, and I just wanted to ask you two questions. So one is, what is your favorite set of Shalos Teshuvos, or a specific teshuva? And if you were to embark on writing a teshuva, or perhaps you have already in the past, what do you think is a critical topic that you would want everyone to know about?
Okay, so Rabbi Kurtz, thank you for the very important work that you're doing. I think that there's a very important teshuva that needs to be expanded upon. And I know that you're into Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Igrot Moshe.
Of course.
And this teshuva is found in the Igrot Moshe when he was asked, probably in the early 1970s, but whether it was permissible to listen to and to sing music that was composed by Shlomo Aurebach.
Oh my gosh, I'm putting that one out for tradition in a few weeks.
Okay, he doesn't mention him by name, but Rav Moshe at that point says he's lenient, because he felt that most of the songs that Aurebach had written up until that point were written when he saw the Chezkat Kashrut. He was still pretty okay in his moral and ethical behavior. And after all, Rav Moshe says, we'll not go through all the details, it's only music. So
right, he says nigunim don't have any inherent sanctity to them.
Correct. So in response to Rav Moshe, and if you ask the teshuva that I would write, this is the teshuva that I would write. And there are a couple of, Rav Sternbach also has a teshuva about this. I think there's another one as well with regard to Aurebach music. I would answer Rav Moshe as follows. Number one, it may be true that Aurebach at that point had written most of his songs when he was still pretty much mainstream, and the news of his abusive and inappropriate boundary violation and beyond boundary violation behavior was not yet known. But most of the music is now, most of the music that he did write was written after that point. Secondly, I don't believe that his music is just stam music, because, for two reasons. Number one is we now have a Aurebach nusach. It's hard to go to a shul which has not appropriated his Kabbalat Shabbat, and been koveya and has set that as a standard for davening, which I think itself is problematic.
Right, that's the thing with Aurebach, is that there's so many tunes, so replete within davening. I hear like, that tune was from Aurebach. Like, I say, wait, no, that tune was from Har Sinai. What are you talking about?
Right. So he transformed Jewish music and made a very, very important contribution in terms of Jewish music. But listen, if we're not allowed to bring a korban, to sacrifice an animal that has a mum, how is this music any different or any better than that? There's become a nusach of Aurebach. There's Aurebach Torah that is shared. So he's really elevated that. And the truth is, I think that one could disagree with Rav Moshe that music is spiritual, and that many people do find their inspiration and their elevation in davening, specifically through music and through nigunim. The Hasidic world has taught us that, and
right.
And even we great Mignagdim have become Hasidic in that Hasidic in that sense. So I have a very big serious problem. I will not daven in a minyan that uses Aurebach nusach. If I'm not such a shul, I will walk out. So if I were to write a teshuva, I would write a teshuva in response to Rav Moshe.
That's very important, and I should point out also that Rav Moshe, because it was written in 1959, he says in the teshuva that he lost the Chezkas Kashrus, but that's because he was only aware that he was playing to co-ed audiences. Right. He wasn't even aware of what we found out, Rachmana litzlan, at a later point.
Yeah, most certainly. And I'm also concerned that victims of Aurebach are still around.
Right.
And even if the victim of Aurebach herself was not present in the shul, but there are other victims of abuse who are sensitive to these things. And what message are we sending in terms of welcoming, in terms of sensitivity, in terms of an ethical comportment in our tefillah, if we're creating a situation where people who have themselves been victims or are sensitive to the victimization that we find in the world of abuse, are present in shul when we are elevating Aurebach as a hero and when we're using his music as part of tefillah.
Wow. And so I don't know if you're going to write a teshuva on this, but I know you've definitely lived this teshuva. You've done a lot of work standing up for disenfranchised, standing up for victims within the Jewish community. And I know you've moved on to the next step of your career, but I know some people, they retire, they just go on a lounge chair and that's it. I doubt that's the case for you, so God should just give you continued tzlacha. There you go. Bikesh Yaakov Leishev V'Shalva. Doesn't happen in Olam Hazeh. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the conference, and Mal Tov again on your more than well-deserved honor here.
Thank you so much, and good luck to all the important work that you're doing.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Dratch. Hello, my friends at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. We are at the RCA conference, and I am joined by my friend and colleague, Rabbi Jordan Aurebach. Rabbi Aurebach, what do? You work at Yeshiva University, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm the director of Torah projects and community engagement for REITs. And I do everything that's sort of outward-facing from the yeshiva for balabatim, alumni, prospective students, etc.
So that's a very fancy way of saying he makes sure to get all the great Torah that's being produced at Yeshiva University, at REITs, to your tables and to your Batei Medrash. So you probably have knowledge of many books. We're sitting right here at a table where you are selling many of the Yeshiva University books. So tell our listeners, what is your favorite either set or specific teshuva, and if you were to write a teshuva, or if you were to commission one of the Rosh Yeshiva to do it on your behalf, what topic would you want to hear addressed?
It's actually not a REITs sefer per se. That's my favorite. But
we won't tell your employers.
It's definitely one that's often quoted by my Rabbi in yeshiva. But I actually am partial to the set of the Shalos Teshuvos of Rav Asher Weiss Minchas Asher. He's obviously one of the more well-regarded poskim of our generation in Eretz Yisrael.
Pretty solid guy.
And I would definitely say that his teshuvas, they show, on the one hand, obviously an incredible breadth and depth of knowledge, and his erudition is incredible. The way in which he writes is extremely clear as well as poetic. But I think the thing that stands out to me the most within his teshuvos is that he's extremely sensitive to the shoel's real sort of underlying needs, and he has an incredible sensitivity towards what is really necessary in terms of the Psak. There are a few teshuvas in particular that I can recall reading where I just said to myself, this is really a posek who understands exactly what the role of a Rav and a posek is. There's one in particular where he was addressing the concept of removing a tattoo. It was a Balas Tshuva in Eretz Yisrael that wanted to know if it was permitted for her to remove a tattoo from her earlier days before she became a Shomeres Torah Mitzvos, and the way in which he addressed the Shiloh was just so sensitive to her emotional state and her well-being, as well as her continued observance of Torah Mitzvos, that it was really just a masterful display of his knowledge and sensitivity all in one. If I had to myself address something, it's actually, I was just talking with my Rabbi Leibowitz about this particular inyan, but as I experienced davening on the Shalosh Regalim, it often strikes me that people sometimes tend to maybe sing along with the Kohanim during Duchening, during Birchas Kohanim. And I was talking to Rabbi Leibowitz that maybe it would be kedai to either give a shiur or write up a tshuva about what is really the appropriate and proper conduct for all the members of the Kehillah while they're being benched by the Kohanim. It struck me as a little bit maybe inappropriate or perhaps halachically problematic for the congregation to be sort of joining in with the Kohanim. It could be that I'm mistaken in that perception, but I thought maybe it would be an interesting area to explore and write about.
Well, I'm definitely a fan, because people who know my opinions, I'm not pro-excessive singing at any time that stretches along the davening, but I think you and I might have separate concerns, certainly worthy of a tshuva, so whether you write it, or you get Rabbi Leibowitz to write it, or someone else that reads to write it, I look forward to it, and thank you for sharing your insights with our listeners at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. Welcome, my friends, at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. Again, we are here at the RCA conference. I'm joined by Rabbi Maury Kelman of Bradley Beach. And the question is, what is a very important teshuva to you that you would like to share with our audience?
So I've always been captivated by Rav Moshe's tshuva. I don't know who's the audience is.
We, Baruch Hashem, have a very broad audience.
Okay, so I will expand. Okay, so Rav Moshe Feinstein, who is of course one of the great rabbis and authorities of the last century, and his Responsa work is studied every single day. So he has a very important question which relates to the whole issue of decrees, and whether when times change and one thinks that perhaps the reason doesn't apply, whether that decree is still applicable or not. So the issue at hand is based on the Talmud in Beitza, where we are told that the rabbis made a decree that we're not supposed to dance and clap on Shabbos. And Tosfot there, the great commentaries, the Tosafist on that spot explained that nowadays we're not bikin b'tikun kli. The whole reason that they forbid dancing and clapping on Shabbos was because the suspicion was that if you start dancing, clapping, you'll bring out a musical instrument, and then maybe the musical instrument also by itself is not forbidden, but it may break, and then you're going to start fixing it.
So fundamentally, the Mishnah in Beitza says you're not allowed to dance, you're not allowed to clap on Shabbos. We actually on the podcast a while back did the Minchas Elazar on it, who gives more of a Hasidic approach. But tell us, what does Rav Moshe say about it?
So Rav Moshe, to explain the Tosfot, because we also have a general idea that if a Beit Din, a court, Jewish court, especially going back to Talmudic times, makes a decree, we don't change it unless there's another Beit Din, another court of law that is a greater in minyan v'chochma, greater in wisdom and also in numbers,
so
perhaps.
Ostensibly, dancing and clapping during Kabbalah Shabbos in shul should be, very clearly usher.
According to the strict letter of the law that we saw, yes, but Tosfot already says 800-900 years ago that it doesn't apply anymore because we don't know, as good Jews, don't know how to repair the instruments. If we did start dancing, clapping, and taking them out,
which is weird because we don't generally do that. Many people say, can we get rid of second day Yom Tov here in Golos? Because even if we were still going based on being Mekadesh L'Chodesh and sanctifying month by month, nonetheless, we could get the word out there on the internet. There'll be WhatsApp groups already. So there's no question of when Yom Tov is. Nonetheless, the takana remains where it is. Correct. So why is that not the case here?
So Moshe Feinstein, in a very, I'd say, groundbreaking and revolutionary type of approach, without getting into the entire Responsa, the bottom line is he makes it sound as if as if we had the Beit Din come together later on and nullify this this decree, which is quite groundbreaking. So
that's very hard to understand.
Yes, so the truth is, and that's why I'm mentioning it, I don't fully understand it myself. I'm not 100% sure the best way to understand it, but of course Rav Moshe Feinstein was one of the great rabbis of the last century, as we said, and that's his approach. That is, it could be in this specific area for whatever reason that it's considered as if the rabbis came together and they nullified this.
So as we say, tzarich ian, it requires further analysis. And I guess it answers the next question. Yeah. If there were to be a tshuva written, either by yourself or if you were to commission it, it would probably be giving more of a hesber, explaining Rav Moshe's reasoning.
Right, and also explaining why it applies here. And there are some other cases as well, what's called mayim megulin.
Right.
If you leave water overnight, even though the great Rabbi Elijah of Vilna, so he and his students still were stringent about this, but we generally, if you leave water overnight, we're not worried about the original suspicion that perhaps a snake came in and put its poison in there. So that also is a similar,
So what remains unclear is which gezeros and takanos are situational versus which ones are categorical. When we say low plug, we do it nonetheless.
Exactly. And unless we literally have in front of us a Sanhedrin that comes up and says, we're looking at these decrees and we don't think it applies.
Well, this is a recurring question we have when studying halacha and studying shalos and teshuvos. So, Rabbi Kelman, I want to thank you very much for your time and continue to hatzlacha with all you do in the rabbinate.
Thank you very much, and you too.
All right, hello to my friends at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. We are joined again with a friend of ours, Rabbi Yitzchak Sprung from Texas. You may recall that we had him on quite some time ago to talk about his Rabbi Rav Nachum Rabinovich, Zichrono Livracha, whose yard site, I believe, just passed, as you said. And we're here at the RCA convention together, and we're putting together a nice little montage of different Rabbanim here and what their favorite set of tshuvos are, or a particular tshuva. And a bonus question, if you have one, is that if you were to write a tshuva yourself, if you have an axe to grind, what would the topic of that tshuva be? Or if you don't want to be so bold, you could say, I wish a posek would write a tshuva about X, Y, and Z. So, Rabbi Sprung.
Amazing. First of all, Rabbi Kurtz, thank you so much. A pleasure and an honor to be back with you, and really, really nice to meet you in person, I have to say.
It's so weird. We're in all these rabbi WhatsApp groups, and we did Zoom together, but here we are in person.
Here we are.
Hopefully the listeners will come together in person one day. We'll have a Shoot First, Ask Questions Later symposium.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it.
If anyone listening wants to sponsor that somehow, let me know.
We'll do it here.
Here at the Armone in Stamford. Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, I am not as much an aficionado of tshuva sarim as you, Rabbi Kurtz.
I would just say I'm a fan.
You're a fan.
I'm just a fan. I don't want to say expertise.
So I am a fan. I will say the only set of tshuva sarim that I've ever read cover to cover is
cover to cover.
The only one is Yaffe by Rabbi Ovadia Yosef of blessed memory. I have to tell you, I was probably one of the few people who was upset when they put out a 7th volume, because I was well on my way in. I was like, oh no, you just had it on.
You never finish learning.
You never finish. And it was really, really fabulous. I don't have a particular tshuva I want to highlight, but I do have to say I've had a lot of time, obviously, reading Rav Ovadia Yosef. And
yeah, what about him fascinated you? I mean, that's a real commitment to learn an entire set of. And I understand Yaffe Das is not as difficult a feat as Yabia Omer, but going through all that, it definitely takes a lot of time. No question about it.
So that's actually a really good place to start, because I actually began because of a comment that Rabbi Herschel Schechter made in an interview, and he talked about in your learning that it's always wisest to go min hakal el hakaved, to go from what's easier, more accessible, to the more difficult. And having had experience on one or two occasions with the Yaffe Das, I found that it was an exceptionally readable work.
It is.
It is so crystal clear.
And if one is very lazy, they just read the Sikkum. They read the summary at the end.
Well, that's no fun. That takes all the fun out of it.
I know.
So that's actually why I began to read it. I just popped it open, and I said to myself, let me see if this really is so consistently crystal clear and easy as I think. And it really became a sefer that I could read for a few minutes here and there, again, because of its exceptional clarity. I could read it when I was tired because it was so exceptionally clear. And this is very rare to have a writer who is just so wonderfully clear that you can do this in any and all occasions. When you consider what other books are there out there that are like this, that are just so clear. It's like the Mishnah Torah is that clear. The Mishnah, depending on where you are in Shas, is pretty much that clear. I don't know of many tshuva sarim that are just that absolutely crystal clear.
I think that's an important thing. When you read Shalos or Tshuvos, some of them are well organized, and they even have section headers to them. Here's Anaf Aleph, Anaf Beis, and some of them are just like, here's the flow of consciousness, which is really cool because it really gives you a feeling of like how they think.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it can be very hard to read if you're not on the same wavelength as his stream of consciousness.
Yes, and one of the, actually two things that you made me think of right now. One of the things that make it so wonderful is Rav Ovadia gives you the relevant background you need to know what he's talking about. A lot of tshuvos, I find, you pop it open, and it's referencing some Gemara that maybe he tells you he's talking about the Gemara, maybe he doesn't. And that can make it very hard. It's like, what, did I just prepare that sugya? Have I seen it recently?
Right, it's like when you learn a Tosos, and the Tosos is like, oh yeah, and it doesn't make sense with that Gemara over there in Avodah Zarah, and you're like, All right, I guess I gotta look up the Muvos Hatosos if you have a Notes Hadar, or which is amazing. It gives it to you in the back without having to pull it off the shelf. Or you have to read the Gemara, which that's how learning is supposed to be done. But you'd expect sometimes Achronim maybe spoon feed a little bit more. I find something like Minchas Asher of Asher Weiss, he spoon feeds it right to you there. Like you need a nice little 20-minute between Mincha and Maury to filibuster. He's got you covered.
Don't tell anyone about the filibusters. Yes, I think that element is so key. The other thing that you mentioned about enjoying seeing how the author, how the posek viewed or thought about a certain issue, Rav Ovadia constantly refers to Klalei Hapsak, the rules of how to paskin a halachic question, which I just love. We talked about fascination on another occasion
on your podcast.
So please do check that out.
What's the name of it again?
It's called 3 Steps Forward. So please.
Wait, this is different than Parsha Pick Me Up.
This is different than Parsha Pick Me Up.
Wait, you're on to a new podcast.
This is a new podcast.
You are very
Rabbi
prolific,
Kurtz.
my friend.
Well, I wouldn't say so. But he constantly references Klalei Hapsak. This Gemara says this is how you deal with a clash between a minhag and a halacha, and this is what you do with a minhag taos, and this is a mistaken custom, and this is what you do when you have a minhag where we're not sure if it's a minhag taos, and do I need to go and sit in front of a basin and get a hatar nadarim and have them undo it for me?
Right.
So that constant reference to how halacha works, which is a great love of mine, I got to appreciate and enjoy throughout, and that was just so wonderful. So you're not only learning about whatever he's talking about, and he does always such a wonderful job of introducing you to the relevant area of halacha and the relevant gemaras, and of course the major opinions on the matter, but he's constantly telling you what does this mean for how to think about halacha in general, and I just love that.
So I think for our listeners, some of our listeners I know read Shas Yeshivas on their own, and some of them might be thinking about taking the plunge, and it sounds like Yechavadas might be if someone's trying to stretch their muscles and get used to learning Shas Yeshivos, that's a great place to start. Now, here's a question, you can choose if you want to answer it or not. Yeah. If you were to write your own tshuva, or if Rav Chacham Ovadia were still alive, is there a topic that you would want to see addressed? You have any axe to grind or anything?
That is a fabulous question. I wish I had an answer to that question. I think that right now, a lot of people are talking about pikuach nefesh and security. And
right now, post October 7th.
Right now, post October 7th, and that's something where I wish I had my own clarity. Most often, when I want to write, it's not about necessarily having an axe to grind, so to speak, or something that drives me nuts. It's about a desire to.
I'm projecting. That's I decided to interject. So when I put out my book, Challenging Assumptions, and my chavrusa David Rich from Shalom, we learned together for 2 years, and he buys the book. He's in Florida, great guy. He ordered it all the way to Florida, nice. And he texts me after.
As you should, listeners, wherever you are.
Yes, absolutely. So he texts me, he's like, Moshe, these are all just your rants, but then you appended halachic sources to them.
That is fabulous.
It's like, Moshe, you just always complain about how long davening took, or you just complain about political correctness, and now you just put all the makoros together. So that's the truth, though.
And that makes a good book.
Look, and the truth be told, that's how some tshuvas get read. It's not like one day the posek woke up and said, I'm going to write about XYZ topic. I think it's interesting. And sometimes it's not even a shoel, an inquirer coming. Sometimes it's just, you know what? There's this issue going on. I'm going to write something up. Something needs to be done. Sometimes there's a mission behind it. But anyway, maybe a writing project for you. I'm doing Unpacking the Igros right now for Rav Moshe Feinstein. Spoiler, I have not as of yet read Igros Moshe from cover to cover, but maybe there's room for an Unpacking Yechavadas series to come out from Rav Ovadia. So I'm gonna encourage you to do that, and so that way our listeners can follow Rabbi Sprung and see what else he'll be publishing with his podcast, and also maybe soon in tradition, the written word as well. Rabbi Sprung, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for once again joining our listeners on Shoot First, Ask Questions Later.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, my friends, at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. We are here at the RCA convention, and I have the chus to be joined with Rabbi Shlomo Weissman from the Basin of America. And we are asking the same question to everyone we speak with, which is, what is your favorite either set of teshuvos or teshuva? And I say in theory sometimes, if someone were to write a teshuva, but I think in your case, you've put out a lot of course, Basin rulings and halachic scholarship. What is a really important one that you would like to bring to our listeners' attention?
So I think the teshuvas that I think are most interesting in the line of work that I'm involved in are ones that don't deal directly with the issues we're handling, but that deal with analogous business industries. For example, I'll say first of all, the reason that that's important to kind of draw and extrapolate from such teshuvas is because business and business practices in the year 2024 are obviously different than things that you'd encounter in 1500s or 1600s in Europe. And so you need to be able to kind of extrapolate from industry to industry or even from circumstance to circumstance. So a lot of times we handle cases involving claims for brokerage commissions and claims relating to brokerage commissions. And when the poskim talk about brokerage commissions, it comes up a little bit, but really the analogous line of work that's analogous to brokerage commissions is shadchanas geld. Situations where a shadchan brokered a marriage and then something went awry and there was some kind of complication in terms of the shadchanas payment.
I always called them marriage brokers. I guess I wasn't so far off.
That's right. They are literally brokers. And so the teshuvas and the sifin and shulchan aruch that deal with the rules surrounding payment of a shadchan can easily be extrapolated and are by the poskim extrapolated all the time to situations involving brokerage commissions. So we've had situations, for example, of what happens when someone brokers a deal and then the deal falls apart. That's very analogous to a situation of a broken engagement, which the Ramah says you basically don't pay the shadchanas geld, or that's the prevalent custom, but then there are all sorts of complications. What if there was a breakup fee? What if there was Tanaim signs so that if one side pulled out of the marriage proposal, a fee was paid?
So not just the perfunctory Tanaim that we do on the wedding day, but back in the day when there was a serious document and there was a pull-out fee.
Exactly, that's exactly right. Our Tanaim are not what they used to be. They used to be a serious document where there would be a breakup fee. Does the shadchan get a commission on the breakup fee? Because after all, the shadchan was the one who caused this whole thing to happen. And so the poskim, there's actually a machlokas among the poskim as to what happens to that breakup fee. Is the shadchan entitled to a portion of the breakup fee? We had another situation involving clawback of a commission where a deal closed, a salesperson got a commission on the sale, and then the sale got unwound because of some complicated legal issue working in the background. Does the payer of that fee get to claw back that commission? And that again goes back to issues or teshuvos that were written back in the Middle Ages surrounding shadchanas geld. So those are the kinds of teshuvas that I found particularly interesting, that particular crossover of industries, but generally speaking, being able to extrapolate from one industry or from one big business practice to another, that's something that Dayanim draw upon all the time.
Right. So so does the Basin of America, do you put out your own teshuvos or rulings? What's being produced by the Basin in terms of records of these psukim?
Whenever we hear a case, we issue a reasoned decision that we've been successful in publishing a small percentage of the reasoned decisions that we publish. The problem that we run into is confidentiality, because people come to us with the expectation and with the promise that we will not be advertising their dirty laundry and disputes in public. Of course,
right.
We're left with a whole library of beautifully written, creative decisions that we're just not able to publish.
It's got to be some statute of limitations, like put like 100-year, put in a time capsule, and then when it can't affect anyone anymore, pull it out.
So that might be. I could see 100 years maybe working, but that doesn't help us today.
I think I saw one of these. Rabbi Itamar Rosenzweig works with you guys.
Yes.
So I read an article over Shabbos about the tuition.
Yes. Yes.
So that was excellent. It was very, the reasoning, the considerations of the Basin about Yoraid and about some of the other ideas about, did they agree to to the star. So just for our listeners, this article was about the father who was sending his kid for a second year of learning in yeshiva in Shana Bet, wanted to pay a lower price than yeshiva was offering him. They never came to a signed conclusion, and he sent his kid anyway. The yeshiva accepted, and the question is, do we go with the father's claim of how much it should be, or do we go with the yeshiva's claim that it's more expensive? And I think the ruling in the end was that you went with what he paid the previous year. That creates like a chazaka going forward as opposed to the market value, because what they did previously is more indicative of what they would agree to the following year.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. That was good summary. You paid attention when you read it. That's exactly right. It's a beautifully written piece. We have a blog, Jewish Prudence. It's called. It's on our website.
I like jurisprudence, but Jewish prudence.
Yeah, right. A little flipped a few of the letters, and that's just one of a series of articles. We have anonymized decisions where we've got permission of the parties to publish them. We have beautiful articles written by Rabbi Rosenzweig, other Dayanim at the Beis Din. If you peruse that blog, you'll get a good sense of the kind of work that we do, the substantive, really interesting, creative work that goes into the dispute resolution services that are offered by the Beis Din of America.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, Rabbi Weissman is pointing out to us that many tshuvas, sometimes we just see them in the ether, and someone writes a tshuva, but we'll see whether anyone paskins like this, something that mamash just happened here at the conference. Our listeners get a little bit of an inside take. So we had a Q&A with Rav Hershel Schechter, and then they asked him about saying Avinu Malkeinu post October 7th. He's like, yeah, we should still be saying Avinu Malkeinu. 1 hour later, we were davening mincha, and we did not say Avinu Malkeinu, and he was right there. And so, sometimes people can put an opinion out there, but it doesn't have any, you don't know if there's like a lemaisa takeaway. Right. But here, when the Beis Din writes something, it's not just for fun. There was actually a psak din that took place, and what we can see, it's a privilege for us to see the records of that, and that's the halachic process taking place right in front of our eyes. So thank you so much, Rabbi Weissman, and God willing, hopefully we'll get you for a full episode at some point in the future.
Okay, thanks very much. Good to speak.
Hey, welcome friends at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. So I am joined by Rabbi Shlomo Yaffe here at the RCA convention, and we're going around asking different Rabbanim. We have a lot of great minds over here. What is your favorite set of Shilos or Tshuvos, or maybe a favorite Tshuva in particular? And if you have an axe to grind, if there was a topic that you were to compose a Tshuva on, or perhaps have already, what would be that topic? What do you think needs to be addressed?
Okay, so we know the famous statement in the Mishnah Torah in Perek Aleph Halacha Gimel of the Rambam's law of tinus of fasts, and he says that should people fail to cry out to God and sound the trumpet and say what has happened to us is merely a natural phenomenon, this difficulty is merely a chance occurrence, this is a cruel, a wrong conception of things which causes them to remain attached to their wicked deeds. Thus this time of distress will lead to further distresses. So the Rambam goes on to quote various psukim, various verses of the Torah, which indicate that in times of trouble we should examine our deeds and we should seek to improve ourselves. However, the same Rambam, the same Maimonides, in the laws of onat devarim, of persecuting people with words, it says that if a person was afflicted by illness and suffering, or God forbid he is forced to bury his children, one should not speak to him in the manner that Eob's friends addressed him, Job's friends addressed him. In chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, your fear of God was your own security. Can you recall anyone who was innocent who was perished? Job's friends, and God later balls them out for this, say, you must be suffering, you must have done something wrong. We know from the beginning of the book of Job that he didn't do anything wrong. God was testing him, but for whatever reason. But the fact is that God criticizes them at the end, and the Rambam says it's forbidden to tell someone, oh, you are suffering because you did something wrong. So there seems to be a contradiction here. And it seems to me that when we're dealing with the community as a whole, we can tell the community, look, we don't always know why things happen, but certainly improving your ways may take away this problem. Everyone can look within themselves and see what needs fixing. And when we have trouble of our own, it's okay to look within ourselves and say, maybe it's a decree from Hashem that can't be changed. But maybe it needs fixing. Maybe there is something that can be changed. Maybe I can open up a new path of blessing. But that is for either something to be said to a whole community or for us to say to ourselves. We have no right, if we're not a prophet. God told Jeremiah, tell the people the temple's going to be destroyed and you're going to go into exile because of X, Y, or Z. If Hashem speaks to you, but if God isn't speaking to you, you have no right to tell someone, I'm telling you that this bad thing happened to you because of this bad behavior, because of your bad behavior. That is cruel and a biblical prohibition. We're not allowed to do that. It's okay to share with people that in difficult times, try to improve your connection to God. Try to open up new paths of connection and blessing. But there are no guarantees. But at the same time, to tell someone I know and to hit them when they're down with a contrived piety is absolutely a negative commandment in the Torah of a biblical nature.
Right. So it sounds like if you were to write a teshuva, we have a mutual interest in onas dvarim, which is a prohibition of basically, there's different ways to parse it, but essentially causing emotional distress to someone, certainly in a non-productive manner for sure. So you would want to pen something about onas dvarim. And which is, I've given an attempt myself, not a teshuva, an essay, but I know you've already looked through it and you noticed that there are some sources like this, which I wasn't misyachis to. So I look forward to, God willing, it should be the case that you write a teshuva on this topic. It's very important given nowadays with the notion of political correctness. And on the one hand, we're blessed that society is very sensitive to other people's feelings. That is a good thing. But the question is, how are we magdir that? What are the parameters to make sure that in our zeal to protect others from onas dvarim, we don't then cause ona to people who we say are the perpetrators of it. So, okay, I look forward to your teshuva coming out, and thank you for sharing your insights with our listeners at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later.
Thank you very much.
All right, hello, my friends at Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. We are joined with the great posek Rav Rimon here at the RCA conference, and we are asking the same question we're asking everyone else, which is what he thinks is a very important either posek or set of shutim that we should know about. And then also, usually I ask someone, what's a teshuva you would like to write? But in this case, what is an important teshuva that the Rav has already written that we should know about?
Shalom everyone. A great book and a posek is Reb Shlomo Zalman Aurebach, Shut Minchat Shlomo. Reb Shlomo Zalman Aurebach in his teshuvos, you can see something very special. First of all, he knows reality very good. When he speaks, let's say, on electricity, in Shut Minchat Shlomo Chelek Aleph, in Siman Tet, Siman Yud, you can see that he understands exactly. He knows all the science. He understands perfect. Secondly, Reb Shlomo Zalman Aurebach, in his teshuvos, he's very deep, but very connected to life. And you see that he thinks he knows life, and you feel the teshuvos are wow. Third thing, Reb Shlomo Zalman Aurebach is very human. Mm-hmm. And also in the teshuvos, you can see the humanity, and I think this gives him a place as one of Gdolei Hador that we had passed away more than 30 years ago, but was one of the great poskim that had great influence on all our generation.
Absolutely. His understanding of the Metzias, like in the electricity teshuva, and I remember he calls out others. He says, in the poskim who disagree with me, they didn't do their research. They didn't talk to the experts.
Exactly.
So he really did his research. He didn't like how Rav Moshe's teshuva, for instance, on microphones. I'm not sure if he was directly calling it out per se, but he was basically critiquing that camp, was my understanding.
Right.
So Shlomo Zalman Aurebach is someone who's certainly worthy, obviously, of our study, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. So what's the Rav himself is also actually authored Sheilot Teshuvot. So what would be perhaps one of the most important teshuvot that you've authored that we should be taking the time to look at?
So, it depends. When do you ask me? You're asking me now when it's a wartime in Israel. Mm-hmm. So in a wartime, I get also hundreds of questions from soldiers' wife, from injuries, and those questions are also important, but also very exciting. And I'll share one question. A woman calls me around 2 months after the beginning of the war, and she says, we are a young couple. We are trying for a while to be pregnant. We did treatment, but nothing helped. Now I got a positive answer. I'm pregnant. I said, wow, בשעה טובה, mazel tov. And then she says, my husband is in Gaza.
Oh, wow.
And I cannot speak to him. There's no cell phone in Gaza.
Wow.
I didn't speak to him for a while. And I know that in 2 days, approximately once in 10 days, he calls me from a special cell phone for 2 minutes. So in 2 days, approximately, he's going to call me. I want very much to share with him that I'm pregnant. I'm so excited. But I don't know if I'm allowed to do it, according to halacha. Why? Because she says, I know that Rambam, that Maimonides says, when you are going in wartime, don't think not on your wife and not on your children, just on Am Yisrael. וידע שמלחמת השם הוא עושה, she tells me, and you have to know that you are doing the war of Hashem, of God.
Wow.
So may I share with him that I'm pregnant? The answer is very interesting, but it doesn't matter now. To see the question, you say, wow, no one is like Am Yisrael. To see our nation, to see our army, to see the sensitivity of our soldiers. We have the best soldiers, the most morality army in the world. We have the most justice war in the world. We are doing a war not just for us, we are destroying Hamas to help the whole world. And when you see Am Yisrael, when you see this woman, you know, wow, we are on the right way. Am Yisrael is strong. Hashem is with us. And please God, we are going to win.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rabbi Rimon. And our listeners really appreciate this message of hope. And I think you leave us on a cliffhanger. This means we have to go read the actual tshuvot that you have authored. And God willing, we look forward to you publishing so much more. We benefit from so much of the svarim that you've written and curricula here in the United States and throughout the world. And you're a true gift to all of us. Thank you so much.
Toda raba.
Thank you for listening to Shoot First, Ask Questions Later. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate us, subscribe, and leave a review. If you'd like to submit a letter to the editor, sponsor an episode, or just have a general inquiry, please email me at mitchellmkurtz@gmail.com. This is Moshe Kurtz, and I look forward to learning with you next time on Shoot First, Ask Questions Later.